At the UK Athletics Championships in Birmingham, Keely Hodgkinson walked to the start line for the 400-meter final and pulled out with no warning and no visible injury. Reporters scrambled. Fans feared the Olympic champion's season was suddenly in trouble. But that withdrawal wasn't Three Reel's story. The actual news had broken 3 months earlier, and almost nobody caught it. To understand why one sudden decision on a start line mattered so much, you need to know where Hodgkinson's season has actually been. This isn't an athlete limping through 2026. This is an athlete having arguably the best year of her career. In February, she broke the world indoor 800-meter record in Lieven, running 1:54.87. In June, she lowered her own British record to 1:54.33. She's already an Olympic champion from Paris, and this indoor season she finally landed the one title that had eluded her, a world indoor gold. On top of all that, she's been experimenting with the 400 meters, a distance she's not used to running seriously. The idea isn't to become a one-lap specialist. It's to sharpen her opening speed so the first lap of her 800 feels easier. She started the outdoor season at that distance in Rome, running 51.14 for a personal best, even against dedicated 400-meter runners, finishing well down the field. She called it throwing herself in the deep end. Then she brought that same experiment home to Birmingham for the UK Championships and qualified comfortably for the final. That's the athlete who walked away from the line. Not someone in decline. Someone at the peak of her powers, pulling out of a race for reasons that, in the moment, made no sense to anyone watching. Word spread fast. Cameras caught her standing at the line, visibly emotional, before turning and leaving without a word to reporters. Amber Anning went on to defend her 400-meter title in Hodgkinson's absence, but that result barely registered. Everyone wanted to know one thing. What happened to Keely Hodgkinson? The answer came from her coach, Jenny Meadows. She explained it was precautionary, tightness in the hamstrings, the same area responsible for one of the toughest stretches of Hodgkinson's career. Hamstring trouble kept her off the track for 376 days across 2024 and 2025, a spell she later called a total mess. She only raced twice in the entire build-up before last year's World Championships in Tokyo, yet still managed a bronze medal behind her own training partner. That history is exactly why nobody in her camp was willing to gamble on a tight hamstring in a 400-meter final that meant nothing next to her real targets. A physio checked her out immediately and cleared her. Meadows made the point plainly: they don't take chances anymore, and neither does Hodgkinson. Hodgkinson herself said she simply wasn't feeling right standing on that line, and chose to step away rather than push through it. On the surface, that was the whole story, a scare, a smart call, nothing more. Every headline the next morning led with the withdrawal, the tears, the question mark over her fitness, and pundits spent the day speculating about what it meant for her summer. But it wasn't nothing more. While everyone was busy asking whether Hodgkinson was injured, they'd missed the far bigger decision she'd already made about her season, one that had nothing to do with hamstrings at all. Rewind to March. Weeks earlier, at an indoor meet in Glasgow, Hodgkinson had quietly said something that barely made headlines at the time. Asked about her summer plans, she confirmed she would not be competing at the 2026 Commonwealth Games. No injury, no setback. Just a deliberate call, made months before anyone was worrying about her hamstring in Birmingham. The Commonwealth Games, held in Glasgow, are the event where she won silver back in 2022, her first major senior medal, in front of a home crowd she's described as special to her. She'd been open about not knowing which event she'd even race there, 800 meters or the mile. But the bigger question was never the distance, it was whether she'd show up at all. And she was choosing to skip it entirely. That's the real bombshell hiding underneath the Birmingham headlines. The 400-meter scare was a footnote. The Commonwealth Games decision was the actual story, and it had been sitting there in plain sight since March. So why walk away from a Games she's already medalled at? Hodgkinson's own explanation comes down to one word: crowded. This is a summer with 4 major athletics events on British soil, something the sport has never had before. World Indoors in February, a home Diamond League meet in London, the European Championships in Birmingham, and Athlos, a new all-female event backed by Serena Williams' husband Alexis Ohanian, making its debut in London in September. Hodgkinson has framed it as bigger than her own calendar. She's talked about wanting these 4 home events to prove British athletics can carry major meets on its own soil, with the Olympics still 2 years away and packed crowds already expected at every one of them. Add up World Indoors, London, Birmingham, and Athlos, and the Commonwealth Games becomes the one event she simply can't fit without breaking herself in the process. The real problem is the calendar itself. The Commonwealth Games run July 23rd to August 2nd in Glasgow. The European Championships begin just 8 days later, in Birmingham on August 10th. 2 major championships back-to-back, with barely a week to recover in between. For most athletes, that's a brutal ask. For someone who's already spent 2 seasons managing hamstring trouble, it's a risk that isn't worth taking. It's worth remembering what Glasgow means to her. It's where she made her first ever senior team at the World Indoors back in 2024. It's a track she's called properly special. Walking away from it wasn't an easy call, and she said as much, insisting she'll still be there supporting from the stands even though she won't be racing. Hodgkinson has made her priority clear: Birmingham on home soil, defending the European title she already holds, and chasing something bigger. Laura Muir holds the record for the most European titles by a British athlete. Hodgkinson wants to get close to it. That target is driving every decision this year, including the one to leave Glasgow off the calendar entirely. But the Commonwealth Games isn't the only thing being sacrificed for a bigger goal. Before Birmingham even arrives, there's London. On July 18th, Hodgkinson lines up at the Navuna London Athletics meet with one target in mind: the outdoor 800-meter world record. It stands at 1:53.28, set by Jarmila Kratochvilova back in 1983, one of the oldest records left in the sport. It won't be simple. Swiss rival Audrey Werro has already gone under 1:54 this year, clocking 1:53. 98 to move to 3rd on the all-time list, and she's the athlete who beat Hodgkinson in a Diamond League race earlier this season. For over 40 years, nobody has come close to Kratochvilova's mark. Now there are suddenly 2 women alive who look capable of it, and one of them wants it to happen in front of her own home crowd. Her training partner, Georgia Hunter-Bell, is on a similar run of form this year, and the 2 of them have been racing and training side by side through most of this build-up. That partnership is part of why Hodgkinson sounds so calm about a schedule most athletes would find overwhelming. She isn't doing this alone, and she isn't guessing. Every event left on her calendar has a specific job to do, and the Commonwealth Games simply didn't have one. So the next time you see Keely Hodgkinson walk away from a start line, don't assume the worst before you know the full picture. Sometimes the scare isn't the story. Sometimes it's just the moment that finally makes people notice the decision she'd already made months before, one that was building toward London, toward Birmingham, and toward a world record that has stood since before she was born.